Your children don't have to have that. In the 11 o'clock service, I'm not going to trouble y'all with it, but at 11 o'clock, I'm going to cut these jokers out that's getting cable in their children's name. 10-year-old got Comcast on their credit. Because some ratchet parent who destroyed their own credit. Now you want to mess up your child just for the 11 o'clock crowd. You want to mess up your child's future just so you can have television. We need it. A word to survive. Uplift. A word for the times. We need it. A word to survive. Uplift. A word for the times. Hallelujah. In the book of Proverbs, once again, chapter number 22, it was my plan on last Sunday to go at verses 1 through 7. But then Lord revealed to me in the midst of preparation last week that we would deal with the background of verses 1 through 6 on last Sunday, so that today all we got to do is tackle verse number 7. So we are not eisegeting this morning. We're not taking one verse and making it say what we wanted to say. Last week I gave you the context. And so this Sunday we can deal directly with verse number 7 because there's a whole lot in that one verse. Solomon says, the rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. Thank you. You may be seated. Told you it's verse 7. From just that one verse this morning, this is part 10 of our Get Your House in Order series, and I want to use as our topic of conversation, forgive us our debt. Get a little orange and green flavor for you there. Forgive us our debt. When the Lord first gave me this title of Get Your House in Order, the title for the series, I knew, at least in a broad sense, the direction that God would have us to go. At some point, I knew we would talk about stewardship, because the key to prosperity, if that's what you're looking for, the key to prosperity is for you to make God your first priority. Jesus says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, more than making money, more than finding a date or a mate, more than moving up the ladder of success in your career. If and when your spiritual house is in order, I'm a witness, everything else will fall into place. When you put God first, it will cause you, ladies and gentlemen, to take inventory of yourself and everything around you. Are my behaviors lining up with my beliefs? Do the people in my life bring clarity or complication? Is my mode of operation conducive to the will of God for my life? And if not, we ought to be asking the Lord to help us to get our houses in order. And so on last week, we told you about this relationship between Solomon and his son. And the reason King Solomon wrote these proverbs was to ensure that the wisdom he had learned, it was his duty to do what? Pass it on. He wrote the Proverbs to his son, just as David, his father, passed on wisdom and knowledge to him. That's why he said to his son in verse number 1 last Sunday, he said, son, I want to make sure that you understand, first of all, the value of a good name. He says a good name is rather to be chosen than great riches, and loving favor is better than silver and gold. Ask somebody around you, what's your name? What's your name? What's your name? What's your name? A good name, we found out, is more valuable sometimes than a master's degree. Have I got a witness here? A good name will give you access to some rooms that you ain't necessarily qualified for. Talk to me here. A good name will cause people to help you when normally they will turn you away. Is there anybody been around long enough to testify that your name or your mama name or your daddy's name or your family name or having a good name has opened some doors for you? That's what Solomon had to help his son understand, along with a healthy dose of confidence about who you are in this world. This all last week review. He said the rich and the poor meet together, which means the same God who made your neighbor also has his hands on you. I wish I had some help in here. He says respect everybody, but don't you be intimidated by nobody. Ice freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't care what neighborhood you live in. So ain't nobody's ice colder than yours. Ain't nobody trash think less than yours. Understand that whoever you are, God made all of us. And then in verses 4, 5, and 6, and all of this is review, he talks about the traps in life that we all need to look out for. He says thorns and snares are in the way of the foolish, or in the way of the hard-headed, but he that doth keep his soul shall be far from them. I can't re-preach the entire sermon from last week, but I needed to review all of that with us in order to put verse number 7 in its proper context. Y'all ready to go to work here? The most critical conversation, not only for this congregation, but also for this community, the most critical conversation we need to have in order for us to get our house in order, there must be some dialogue, there must be some discussion about debt. Now, I know this ain't the sermon you want. We was just supposed to, have some little homecoming Easter speech or something. But I'm telling you, this is a conversation we need to have right now, because y'all sure enough spent some money this weekend. Somebody say debt. By definition, debt is simply understood as something that you owe. Okay? It can be monetary, like owing somebody $50. Or it can be, and this is a word I made up, it can be restitutionary in nature, like owing somebody an apology or a debt of gratitude. Like I owe my entire existence to my parents. I owe my success to all of the leaders and the mentors that helped me get where I am today. That's what I call restitutionary debt. In other words, you owe somebody an apology, but you're too stubborn to say that you're sorry. You owe somebody a debt of gratitude, but every now and then you need to reach back and thank those that helped you get where you are today. But then the second definition, and it was the last part that's on there, you got to hold on to this for a few minutes. It talks about an offense that requires reparation. It's an offense, like a sin, like a trespass that we commit. And you got to hold on to that, stick a pin in that for about 20 minutes or so. I'll be back to it towards the end. But the reason we need to have a conversation about debt is because the majority of the people that I preach to are either at or below the poverty level. I talked about this last week. I told you I was convicted by this because the majority of the people that I'm preaching to, understand, it don't look like it. Doesn't look like they are struggling. But you better believe that with the number of single parents, with the number of college students, with the number of elderly people we have in the pew, even some of us who have husbands or wives, a lot of us are about one paycheck from being homeless. Talk back to me here now. Last week I told you how convicted I was about this scripture because there is no way I can feel comfortable doing as well as I am without at least giving my people the tools that you need to change your financial condition. Now, if you all right where you are, because I understand this the 8:30 service, this the rich crowd apparently. If you all right where you are, then forgive me for wasting your time this week. But the Lord sent me here, and he sent this series for a specific demographic, a specific purpose, and it's time out for us just coming to church, talking about heaven and milk and honey over there, streets paved with gold up there. But the half of us will live 70 years not knowing how to make it from day to day. I have no problem with heaven. I look forward to going to heaven. But the fact of the matter is, I ain't trying to go right now. So if I got to live here for 70 years, if I got to exist in this world, I don't want every day to be a struggle. Talk to me here. I want to enjoy some of these days that God has given to me. So the only way we can do that is by getting our house in order. Because, see, remember now, Pastor, why you got to preach all of this? Why can't you just preach he died and he got up and let's go home? No. Here's why. Church folk don't go to psychiatrists. Church folk don't seek out an accountant or financial planner. A lot of folk don't have relationships with credit unions. Folk don't have a hookup at the dealership. So then my duty as your pastor is much more than just preaching to you about heaven. We got to talk about debt. Okay. You know what it is by definition. But what does the Bible say more specifically about debt? Verse 7 says that the rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is subject to the lender. Do you know what that means? I'm glad you asked. It means essentially, according to God, being in debt puts you under the rule of the one you're borrowing from. Why? Because rich people control the resources and the wealth, and watch this, the rules for distribution. The poor feed the rich. Those that are hungry feed those that are full in that world system. Because as long as you're borrowing, you're really putting food in rich folks' stomach. Come on back to me here. Are you paying attention to the presidential election right now? I know it's a year early, but you need to watch what's going on right in front of our faces. You got this thing called campaign financing. Politicians create what's called a super PAC. And essentially, it allows them to collect ridiculous sums of money without any limits from the government. What does that mean? If I want to run for office, I can have all my rich friends to cut me as many checks as I want or they want. But now understand, once those donors give me that money, now I am at least obligated to consider what they want in return. Do y'all see where I'm going with this? That's how laws get made. That's how policies get put in place. It ain't got nothing to do with the will of the people. You think you live in a democracy. I'm here to tell you, you live in a money society. It's not about no majority vote. The hand that rocks America's cradle are the hands that's writing the checks. You become a slave to their agenda because you took their money, and you have to say what they want to hear in order to get their money. You don't necessarily support what they're saying, but if you want their money, you got to at least act like you do. Next few months, they're going to come through here fronting. Pastor, it's all right if I come to your 8:30 service? Yeah, sure, come. Why not? Everybody comes to church. And they'll attempt to make you think they love Jesus, that they're spiritual, that they read the Bible, that they grew up in church, and they know how to throw the little catchphrases out there, because that's what political people do. But then them same folk will turn around and support gay marriage. Same church folk. And they're not saying it necessarily because they want to say it, but they understand how strong the gay lobby is in America. Don't you get quiet on me. I'll say some more. I said how strong the lobby is. They got millions on top of billions of dollars that they pile just into that one agenda item, and they can buy the conscience of a politician. You can't say in good conscience that you believe in killing babies. Fix your mouth to say that right now. I believe in killing babies that ain't even been born yet. You can't fix your mouth to say that. But guess what? There's a strong support base for it. And enough rich folk get together, they will force you to make it legal. They already have. All right? Y'all don't like politics. Let me get a little closer to home. Do you think these athletic programs care what you think? Look at me now. Do you honestly think, I don't care if it's 3,000 fans or 50,000 fans in the stand down the road. They don't care about you because all you did was buy a $40 ticket. No. The real movers and shakers are the ones who cut checks behind the scenes. That's why you can holler all day about this president or that coach or that player or whatever. They ain't listening to you. You ain't spending nothing but $40. It's only when the donors have something to say and they threaten to close up their checkbook. That's when policies get changed, and that's when folk get booted out the door. You be at the game fussing up. We 0-5. We need to call some better plays. Coach need to get fired. They ain't listening to you. Because the majority of y'all don't cut no checks. Tell your neighbor, money talks. And when money start to walk, in a more spiritual sense, those who are lending rule over those that have their hand out. That's why we as a church can't afford to have our hand out to the government. Because as soon as I say something that the world don't agree with, they'll threaten our tax exempt status and take away all their little grant money that we might apply for. I can't afford to be under the government's thumb. The rich rules over the poor. The borrower ends up being a servant to the lender. And the reason why this sermon is entitled Forgive Us Our Debts is because for too long we've allowed ourselves to become slaves to the world system of operation. The principle of ownership, something that our foreparents tried their best to practice. It seems like one generation after Jim Crow, we've convinced ourselves that we can borrow our way into happiness. See how quiet your cousin's getting right now? Grandma and them own their land. Daddy and them own the property that the family reunion meets on every other year. But yet one generation removed from them, one generation removed from Jim Crow, now all of a sudden our generation think we can borrow our way into happiness. Instant gratification. The idea of long-term planning is just about non-existent in our community. So again, the reason I gotta preach this sermon is because ain't nobody else gonna tell you the truth. What I need you to understand, first of all, is that all debt isn't bad debt. Can I take my time here? All debt is not bad debt. In a perfect world, we would have all the cash flow that we need to get everything done, but that just, tell your neighbor, that ain't my reality. That ain't my reality. Because we live in the world system, just about everybody is going to end up borrowing something from somebody. So then we break it down into two categories. You have functional debt or good debt. And then later on, we're going to talk about what my daddy called dumb debt. Functional debt is a necessary evil in our lives. You don't want to owe nobody nothing, but the fact is you ain't got no money sitting up under the mattress. If you're renting an apartment for a little while, that's okay. That's functional debt. You got to live somewhere. You got to have a roof over your head. But once you figure out what city you want to settle in, at some point or another, you need to be working on buying a house. Are y'all listening to me this morning? That's functional debt. You ain't got $200,000 saved up front, so you save 10% and you borrow 90%. That's functional debt, and you pay on it every month with a solid plan to pay it off. That's functional debt. That's good debt. And if you're wondering how much house you should try to buy, go to bankrate.com when you get a chance. Bankrate.com recommends no more. Come on back to me here so they can see me. They tired of looking at that. They recommend no more than 20% of your monthly income when you're seeking to pay for a house. Y'all understand that? 20% of your monthly income is a safe amount to try to put in terms of a monthly mortgage on a house. No more than that. Your car, that's functional debt. But even then, you got to be careful not to buy too much car. Pastor, how do I know how much is too much? I'm here to teach you. According to interest.com, it's a real website, all you do is take 10% of your gross monthly income, watch this, subtract the monthly insurance payment, and that amount that you have left, that's how much car you can afford. So if you make $2,000 a month, what you do is you take 10% of that, which is $200 a month, subtract whatever that interest payment is, and you pretty much coming out with $150-something payment. You don't need to try to go no more than that. It's functional debt. Go back to that same screen there. Your utilities, that's functional debt. Your insurance, that's functional debt. Your medical services, that's functional. Your home phone, your cell phone, your internet, your student loan, all those things are good debt. It's all right to have those debts. It's functional. You can't afford to pay $20,000 for a surgery up front, so you got to finance it. Insurance pay a part, you got to pay the other. That's functional debt. Because some company, here's why, some company is providing us with a service. You're going to really like this. They are entering into a covenant with you to pay what you owe. Do you know why it's a sin not to pay your bills? No, I mean really, it's a shame, but it's really a sin too. You know why? Psalm 37 and 21. Psalm 37 and 21. It says that the wicked borrows but does not pay back. But the righteous is generous and gives. Watch this one. Romans 13 and 8 says, owe no man nothing except to love each other. That's the only debt you should be in, because you owe your brothers and sisters love, but you shouldn't owe them nothing else. Because the one who loves another has fulfilled the law. That's the way to financial freedom. You should be living your life every day trying not to owe nobody nothing if you can help it. Why is it a sin not to pay your bills? Because you are receiving a service that you would not otherwise have without them. Listen, you don't own no cell phone towers. AT&T does. You don't lay down no cable wires. Comcast does. You don't generate no electricity or filter no water. The city or the county does. So what you're paying for is the service that those entities provide for you, and to not pay them is like walking in a store and stealing out the cash register. And I hear what you're saying. God made all the water in the world, so why I got to pay to have water? That ain't God's water you bathing in. That's the city's water, the county's water that they have filtered for you, that they have cleansed for you, that they have processed for you. That's what you're paying for. Otherwise, go take a bath in the rain. But it ain't rained in about 2.5 weeks, so how's that going to work for you? Keep going, Pastor. Keep going. Keep going. Tell your neighbor, pay your bills. If someone provides a service for you, like a hairdresser or a barber or the lawn man or the guys at the car wash, the Bible says that you need to pay them because the worker is worth his hire. Deuteronomy 24:15, God said, you shall give him the wages on the same day, not a week later, not 2 weeks later, no, before the sun set, because he is poor and he's counting on that money lest he cry against you to the Lord and you be guilty of sin. In other words, these entrepreneurs are counting on their money, and it ain't for you to come along looking for a hooker talking about I'll get back with you next week. Do you walk in Macy's talking about I'll get back with you next week? Do you walk in the dealers talking about I'll pay you when I get a chance? So why would you not pay these entrepreneurs? Why would you not give them the fair pay for the work that they gave you? Stop looking for a hookup all the time. Some folk can't even look you in the eye because they owe you money. Well, I would just get the devil is a liar. Show me where my money. I think what God is trying to teach us is that debt in and of itself is not bad, because in some cases debt is necessary. It's functional. Student loans are functional debt. It's okay to invest in your education, but the next kind of debt you got to avoid is what my daddy calls dumb debt. Credit cards. Dumb debt. TVs on credit. God bless your soul. Furniture on credit. I'm going to help you. Phones on credit. Clothes on credit. Jewelry on credit. Underwear on credit. Tattoos on credit. I'm going to say that for 11 o'clock service. I know y'all don't have that problem. The reason these debts are considered dumb debt is because you really don't need most of that stuff. Now, I heard what some of y'all mumbled under your breath. I heard you. I heard you. You want to argue that it's okay to have nice things. It's all right for me to enjoy my life. My friend, I agree with you 1,000%. But if you learn how to live within God's system, I'm saying that you can still have those things, but you got to plan long term so you can purchase them debt free. Am I teaching all right this morning? Here's a weird idea. How about you save for the furniture you want? How about you put aside something to purchase that plush couch that you want? In the meantime, sit on the raggedy couch. Would that be the end of the world? In the meantime, sleep on the bed that your mama gave you when you left home to get you on your feet, and then you save for the $5,000 Havertys you want. Because when they put you on the street, they're going to put your $5,000 bed on the street too. Here's an idea. Watch the TV you already got. It ain't got to be 80 inches. It ain't got to hang on the wall. They got to fix nowadays. You ain't even got to have cable. Here's an idea. Find you a phone that is functional and won't cost you $700. Who cares if you got the new iPhone? Do iPhone 7, 8, or 9, or whichever one they own now, do that do anything functionally different than iPhone 1? Functionally now. Do it call? Do it text? So then what is you in line for at 3 o'clock in the morning trying to get one for? What bothers me in our community is you got Negroes at the bus stop with the new iPhone. Something ain't right about that. What you calling a ride? I mean, what you calling an Uber driver on your new iPhone? They got phones now that do everything that all the other ones do. It may not have no fancy name, but it's functional. And they got plans now. You ain't even got to sign no contract. It's with these other companies that are trying to come up some, and they will get for $25 a month. You can talk all you want, text all you want. You may have to stand right here and talk, but that's okay. You're trying to get somewhere in life. Here's a weird idea. Wear the clothes you already have. Don't fall into the dealer's trap. We'll give you 15% more off if you sign up for a dealer's card today. Is this the same dress that you marked up 3 months ago? So now you think you're giving me a deal? I know better. I know how this game works. See how quiet the ladies got right up in there? I was with him before he started talking about all that stuff. Here's the one. Jewelry. On credit? No. But Pastor, I'm getting ready to propose, man. She want that rock. I got to give her that rock so everybody can know that she got a man that I'm in love with. First of all, you ain't marrying everybody else. Talk to me, ladies. He ain't proposing to everybody else. He ain't spending the rest of his life with everybody else. Because the thing about jewelry is, if you know you gonna propose, don't pop the question until you saved up enough for an engagement ring. Watch this, fellas. I'm finna help you. Every fella in here better shake my hand if you got a girlfriend after these services. You don't get the 5-carat rock in the beginning. Who you think you are? I don't even know you that well. Please understand, you start out with a 1/2-carat white gold. And if you stick around, we will upgrade to the Rock of Gibraltar. Somebody ought to talk to me. Fellas, y'all better give me a dap after this service. I'm trying to save your credit. You ain't trying to impress nobody. You ain't trying to win no woman with what you got in your wallet. Because the fact is, if we going to be together, we going to struggle together sometimes. We going to have to be broke together sometimes. And you don't want to be homeless with a 5-carat diamond on your finger. Preach, Pastor. I'm trying my best. Some of y'all are so superficial. Some of y'all are so surface that you would rather have the appearance of wealth. Just so your girlfriends can tell you how cute you are. Just so they can wonder how much in love you are. Oh, that's so cute. And you jokers are mad at each other every day because you're broke. Tell your neighbor, I ain't trying to impress nobody. It's dumb debt. When you're struggling, you discover very quickly what is essential and what's optional. Somebody ought to talk to me here. Optional says I can live without it. You know what? It's nice to have cable, but I've been in a situation where cable was cut off and I ain't had no choice, and I still lived through the night. Somebody ought to talk to me here. You don't need a fancy phone. That's optional. You don't need 4 bedrooms. How do I know? Because your grandmama and them generation, they slept 4 to a bed in a 2-bedroom shotgun house, and they still had a good life. I wish I had some help in here. As long as you are clean, as long as you are decent, as long as you like what you got in your life, who cares what people say? Because those people don't pay your bill. God help me today. We got to get our house in order. You don't know if it's a new suit or if it's one I wore 5 years ago. You'll never know because it's me. Got to get nothing new because it's Pink Sunday. Y'all gonna learn. Y'all gonna learn. Y'all gonna learn. The only way we do that, get our house in order, the only way we do that is to eliminate these debts. I don't want to be a slave to, you know how bold the world is? They so bold, they actually call it a MasterCard. Like, that's bold. Like, yeah, you're going to be a slave to me for the next 27 years. I'm your master. And you swipe. And you swipe. And you swipe. I don't want to be a slave to MasterCard. Young people, you don't want Sally Mae and all these other folk to hold you hostage for the rest of your life. Oh, yeah, you got to invest in your education. But what I'm trying to get parents in here to understand, if you got a child right now in this room that's 10 years old or younger, or even a teenager, they have something in our beautiful state of Florida called the Florida prepaid plan. And if you really have a strategy as a parent, you should have been putting $20 a month on that thing since your child was born. You should have been making that down payment. I'm telling you, your college will be paid for by the time they're 18 years old. I know it because one of our members did it. Cynthia, didn't you do that for Delicia? Raise your hand, Cynthia. Raise your hand, Delicia. That girl's college. Raise your hand like I told you to, go. That's me. No. Her college is paid for because 20 years ago, her mama had the mind to save in it for $20. That's one of your bad habits every week. But you gotta plan long term. Your children don't have to have debt. In 11 o'clock service, I'm not going to trouble y'all with it, but at 11 o'clock, I'm going to cuss these jokers out that's getting cable in their children's name. Ten-year-old got Comcast on their credit. Because some ratchet parent who destroyed their own credit, now you want to mess up your child, just for the 11 o'clock crowd, you want to mess up your child's future just so you can have television. You got to plan for the future. Well, Pastor, I hear what you're saying. This is a good message, one of the best sermons I ever heard, Pastor. But the problem is I don't know the first step in getting my house in order. I can't preach all of this in one sitting. I'm not going to try. But in the next few months, this is long-term planning. I'm going to bring the information and the resources to the table. And at that point, it'll be up to you to decide how bad you want it. I'm already talking to credit unions, and I'm going to bring them to the table. And you will have the chance to come right here and talk to them and talk about your situation, talk about what your goals are. Wait, I'm bringing the bank to you. Loan officers, bringing them to you. Mortgage writers, bringing them to you. Come in, seasoned people, estate planners. I don't want to talk about death. I ain't going nowhere. Oh, you gonna die. And you don't want to trust your children when they're emotional. You don't want to trust your relatives when they still crying and missing you to get your affairs in order. You need to write something down ahead of time so that nothing will go wrong. You need to let them know where you want to be buried, how you want to be buried, what you want to be buried in, who you want to pray, who you want to sing, who you want to preach. All that stuff need to be written down, and what to do with your money. I'm going to bring them to the table. And we're going to see how many of us show up. And listen, you don't have to be 70 years old to have a will. You need to have a will right now. If you own a piece of chewing gum, you need to have a will written down. A church with this many people, I cannot allow you to continue to live in bondage. Can't do it. That's why this last point and that last definition I told you to hold on to, brothers and sisters, the biggest debt that exists in our lives is the accumulation of sins and trespasses. See, the Bible says that we were born in sin, shaped in iniquity. And what did we say with that second part of the definition? We said that debt is a trespass. It's a sin that needs to be forgiven, something that needs to be worked out between you and God. When you were born out of your mother's womb, you came here in debt. Bible says that the wages of sin is death. We rack up our bill every time we open our mouths. Every lie you tell, debt. Every cuss word. Say you don't cuss. Debt. Every bad thought, every evil action, every unrepented sin, every sin, as you say, of omission or commission, meaning everything we did that we were supposed to do and everything we didn't do that we should have done, sin carries a penalty. And there's nothing we can do, I'm closing now, to pay it off. It says that debt is a sin that requires reparation. But with this debt, the only way to pay it off, somebody got to die. Church folk ought to know I'm turning the corner right about now. The reason you ought to get happy about this last part of this little message here is because I'm getting ready to tell you about somebody who paid your debt in full. For God so loved the world. I'm closing now. But he gave his only begotten son. Jesus, the only begotten son of the Father, he cut a check on the cross to settle your debt once and for all. Jesus Christ, Savior, Lord in heaven, paid to the order of whosoever believeth. How much is it good for? Everlasting life. And the little memo on the bottom says, because I love you. In other words, it was not because you lived right. And it was not because you did everything you were supposed to do. But the fact of the matter is, God loves you so much that he decided to pay a debt that he did not owe. Now, there's some people on a Sunday morning who decide maybe not to get excited about that truth. And so I'll take you from outside the church in the world, and then I'll bring you back to the old rugged cross. What if I told you, or what if you got a letter in the mail that said that your mortgage that you've been paying for 10 years and still got 20 years left to pay? What if you got a letter in the mail that said your mortgage is paid in full? How would you respond? Would you sit there nodding at the mailman? Or would you do a little bit more? How would you respond if you got a letter in the mail to tell you that the car that you've been paying $400 a month for and still got 3 more years left to pay? What if they told you that your title is now paid for and you can drive free and clear? How would you respond and how would you act? How would you respond if you got a letter in the mail to say that all of your student loans, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 was paid in full? Would you just sit there and nod your head, or would you give God the glory for paying you in full? Come on back to the church now and think about all of your sins, all of your lies, all of your misdeeds, all of your situations. What if I told you that Jesus came down through 42 generations, met with all your creditors, met with all your debts, and he settled it on an old rugged cross? He was wounded. I'm preaching good up in here. For our transgression, he was bruised for our iniquities. He died for our sins. I heard the Bible say God made him that knew no sin. He became sin so that when God looks at us, he don't see what you did. He don't see what you owe. All he sees is the blood. It reaches quick I said it reaches to the highest mountain and it falls to the lowest valley. Is there anybody can thank God for the blood? He died to cover my debts. He died to get me out the hole. I was sinking deep in sin. I was far from the peaceful shore, very deeply stained within. I was sinking to rise no more. But the master, I wish I had a church here, but the master of the sea, he heard my despairing crying from the waters. He lived in me, now safe am I. It was that Friday morning, Jesus paid it all. He died for my sin, but right now, yes, sir, I said, Sunday morning, he got up, paid in full. He got up with all power in his hands. Good morning now, y'all. We got to get out of here. But is there anybody here glad that you know Jesus? Don't fool me now. Don't do it because I say do it. But if the Lord's been good to you, don't do it because I tell you. But if the Lord made a way for you, shake your neighbor's hand. Look at your neighbor. Give them some encouragement and tell them, neighbor, I got a reason to give God the glory. Tell them by his stripes you are healed. Tell them by his stripes you're out of debt. By his stripes the chains are broken. By his stripes you are free. By his stripes my needs are met. By his stripes I'm eating every day, walking and talking with my mind stayed on the Lord. Won't he do it? Won't he do it? Have you tried him for yourself? Do you know him for yourself? Open up your mouth, roll back, and say, I'm free. I'm free. I'm free. I'm free. You gotta break them if you're getting out. I've been tied up for too long. I've been stressed for too long. I've been worrying for too long now. I'm